35 years ago, no one could have imagined that Vietnam would have become one of Asia's runaway success stories. But it's caught up fast and now has one of the world's highest growth rates. And Ho Chi Minh City is its commercial and economic hub.
I think this is a market in transition, but a market that means it. It's a market that actually wants to make that transition. Very often when sort of countries open up their markets, there's an awful lot of obstacles in the way. There are obstacles here, but Vietnam actually wants to overcome them. You've got a very, very young population. Of the 85 million in Vietnam, I think 65% are under 35. This is a population that doesn't remember the war in the 70s. Their parents do, but they're not affected by it. This is a generation that uses the internet possibly more readily than we do in the UK. Things are seen through a very different prism by the younger generation here. Very much part of the modern world.
Vietnam is a country on the up. Following the liberalisation of the country's economic policies, bilateral trade between Vietnam and the UK has grown strongly, with UK exports to Vietnam increased by 64% from 2005 to 2007. Ho Chi Minh City is establishing itself as the country's commercial core. While the city has just 7% of Vietnam's population, it generates 22% of Vietnam's GDP.
The ambition at a national level is to achieve that middle income status, and they realise that to do that it involves foreign investment increasingly, and that's why you see sort of more and more doors opening in Vietnam. We're seeing an increasingly dynamic financial services industry developing. You take a population of 85 million people, only 10% of them have bank accounts. Yet in 2 years, the government and all the state-owned enterprises, which is a lot of industry here, it's mandated to pay salary through the banking system. Huge potential.
In recognition of the country's potential, UK Trade and Investment has designated Vietnam as one of its 17 emerging markets around the world. In the past few years, it's emerged as a serious competitor to China in the economic powerhouse stakes, thanks to a dynamic labour market.
In manufacturing, we are starting to see made in Vietnam, and this goes hand in hand with their commitments with the World Trade Organization as more sectors open up to foreign investment. So it's important for Vietnam to comply with the World Trade Organization commitments, and we will see much more made in Vietnam. Nam of London is a very good example of Anglo-Vietnamese cooperation in manufacturing. They supply the clothing lines for big household UK names like Tesco's, Marks & Spencer's. It's partly due to the low cost of labour here, the quality of materials here, but that's what they produce here. Interestingly, it's not just to the UK. Somebody buying at Tesco's expansion into Central and Eastern Europe through Poland and Hungary is probably buying from a British supplier something made by Nam of London in Vietnam.
Vietnam had a period of isolation internationally, and a lot of people still have that image of the country. But the end of the war was over 3 decades ago, and it's very different now. It has developed at a fast pace into a middle-income country. They've always done business here, but more dynamic market forces have been unleashed, allowing the Vietnamese to trade internationally.
This has been a growing market for British goods. I mean, bilateral trade is now worth about £1 billion a year. We still buy a lot more from Vietnam than we export, but that's growing. And I think the demand for sort of consumer goods, actually at the top end of the scale, the growing middle class, the wealthier people, will buy designer goods, will buy sort of brand name products. So you're starting to see the famous international brand names appearing here, and you're starting to see some of those British ones appear as well too.
To date, inward investment opportunities from Vietnam to the UK have been limited. But as the Vietnamese economy continues to grow, it is hoped that local companies will look at the UK as a possible location for their business expansion. UKTI has dedicated and experienced teams on the ground to provide advice and share their expertise on how to do business with a country whose momentum right now seems unstoppable.
The potential is huge. It's a little bit like sort of crossing the road. You look at that huge mass of traffic just coming towards you. Looks terribly confusing, terribly difficult. But, you know, once you sort of take the plunge and set foot, you do exactly what Vietnam's doing. You just keep going across that road and you keep moving forward. You know, that's the way you cross the road here. You never ever stop. You never ever go back. You just keep moving slowly, slowly, slowly. But you get there. And that's actually the way business has to operate. You need to take that first step, keep going.